The People's Picnic.
Hello everyone, welcome to the conversation. I was just driving and listening to the radio, national propaganda radio, NPR. For the few minutes I was tuned in, they were discussing vaccination and those that are hesitant, and one caller said that they are just waiting for something bad to happen to their family members that choose not to take the vaccine in New York, and just thought, wow, how pessimistic, how negative. They're actually waiting for something bad to happen. And then as they were going to break, the host said that they were discussing how people deal with their anger regarding their loved ones who choose not to get vaccinated. And I really wish I caught the title of the whole program or the subject of what they're discussing, but if that is really the subject that they are broadcasting on the radio, how do you deal with the anger of folks around you that are not getting vaccinated? If fear wasn't already enough of a paralyzing emotion, and if it wasn't an emotion that inspires irrationality, because we can't really think straight when we're stressed and fearful. Fear has its place, but if we're constantly in a state of fear, pumping every day, then we can become paralyzed by that fear. But if that wasn't bad enough, now we're being pumped with how to deal with the anger. Oh, you're not angry? Well, maybe you should be. Yeah, you know what? That's right. I do have a coworker who's not vaccinated. I guess I'm entitled to be angry. The radio's talking about it. All the experts are discussing it. So, yeah, how do I deal with I guess I am angry. Yeah, now we have anger, another irrational emotion. So, that's great. Props to the news media. But the reason I really wanted to make this video today is because there was a video I posted of Rand Paul that immediately was flagged. And I was like, oh, wow. Regardless of what this gentleman is saying, he's a public official and he's a public health expert. He's a doctor. He studied virology. He did, go on to become an eye doctor, but he understands virology. He is a doctor. He's entitled to his opinion, and as Americans, we are entitled to hear his opinion. He's a senator of the United States. So now YouTube is censoring senators, but I can't say I'm surprised. But those that pretend like these are just private companies and they can do whatever they want, that argument doesn't really work anymore, since the Biden administration is now partnering with big tech to stamp out misinformation as they see fit.
Biden slamming the social media platforms. NBC's Peter Alexander asked the president what his message is to platforms like Facebook on their handling of COVID disinformation.
They're killing people. I mean, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated, and they're killing people.
Facebook responding in a statement saying, quote, we've partnered with government experts, health authorities, and researchers to take aggressive action against misinformation about COVID-19 and vaccines to protect public health. So far, we've removed more than 18 million pieces of COVID misinformation, removed accounts that repeatedly break these rules, and connected more than 2 billion people to reliable information about COVID-19 and COVID vaccines across our apps. Now, the White House is taking an increasingly aggressive stance.
You went through kind of the top line details of this yesterday, but can you elaborate a little bit on the Facebook, the administration to Facebook, flagging of disinformation, and then there's also some reporting that we've had that Facebook maybe hasn't been as proactive as the White House would like it to be in response to some of the flagging. So the process of how the flagging works, and then whether Facebook has been amenable to those requests.
Sure. So we are regularly making sure social media platforms are aware of the latest narratives dangerous to public health that we and many other Americans are seeing across all of social and traditional media. And we work to engage with them to better understand the enforcement of social media platform policies. So let me give you an example just to illustrate it a little bit. The false narrative that remains active out there about COVID-19 vaccines causing infertility, something we've seen out there flowing on the internet quite a bit, in other places as well, which has been disproven time and time again. This is troubling, but a persistent narrative that we and many have seen, and we want to know that the social media platforms are taking steps to address it. That is inaccurate, false information. An example of the kind of information that we are flagging. And that is an example of the kind of information that we are flagging or raising.
And then has Facebook been as proactive as the White House would like in terms of its response to those flags?
Well, I think as I noted yesterday, Phil, there are more steps that everyone can take. And I would just note again, this is a responsibility of officials speaking, of course, on behalf of the government. It's a responsibility of members of the media. It's the responsibility of citizens and civic leaders and people who are trusted voices in communities around the country. That has a broad definition. Social media platforms is one of them. And as we know, it is also there are also areas where a lot of people get news and information. Sometimes those are accurate news items reported by some of your outlets or accurate information shared by a neighbor. Sometimes there is information that is not. It is hard to discriminate, as we know. This is not a new issue, but it is an issue that is impacting people's lives. So a couple of the steps that we have, that could be constructive for the public health of the country are providing for Facebook or other platforms to measure and publicly share the impact of misinformation on their platform and the audience it's reaching. Also with the public, with all of you, to create robust enforcement strategies that bridge their properties and provide transparency about rules. You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others for providing misinformation out there. Taking faster action against harmful posts. As you all know, information travels quite quickly. If it's up there for days and days and days, when people see it, it's hard to put that back in a box. And of course, promoting quality information. Algorithms, I don't know how they work, but they all do know how they work. So those are some of the steps that we think could be constructive for public health, for public information, for public, and the right of the public to know.
Even if they have the best intentions at heart, they are a team of flawed humans like everyone else. So to have such an authoritarian force clamp down on anyone, even health experts, that dissent from the narrative, there's never really been a time in American history where that was allowed with the partnership of the government. That's an infringement on free speech. Free speech includes being able to hear others speak. So that's a violation that, the public cannot hear Rand Paul's message and decide for themselves. I mean, we're not all so stupid that we just believe everything we hear and we just listen to everyone without considering anything. I mean, some people are, especially those who've been indoctrinated in the education camps throughout their life on how to think, and instead of taught how to think critically, they are taught how to answer correctly and how to listen to the experts. But anyway, so YouTube took down Rand Paul's video of his public service announcement, and he's a doctor. He's not the first doctor that YouTube has censored. In fact, YouTube censored the doctor who invented the mRNA technology, a video that he posted several months back. And, you know, when the mainstream entities that contain 90+% of the communication highways between the public, you know, the public square, so to speak, where we are supposed to have our free speech in this free country, when they are dominated and then controlled, especially when it comes to scientific matters, and then you shut out one side of the story, in this case, dozens, if not hundreds of doctors that have had a slightly alternate opinion or an alternate solution or alternate ideas. Just, you know, sometimes we don't really know, but when you start to discuss things, then you can unravel, you know, the scientific community of experts, you know, can hear each other and peer review and, you know, get closer to the truth, get as close to the truth as possible. But when you're shutting out one side of the conversation, including a large body of experts, doctors and scientists who have a different opinion, then the mainstream media, including big tech, partnered with the government, is only allowing their authoritative message to be heard. And, you know, the problem with that is, even if they're correct this time, what about next time? Do we really want the government to have that much power? No, we don't. That's why we have freedom of speech as in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights, and you know, especially when it comes to hearing a senator. I mean, you know, late last year, we were blocked out from hearing the sitting president of the United States speak on the platforms where speech proliferates, and you know, we need to silence that opposition. You know, we can't hear it, even if it is so disturbing to you. Guess what? The reason we have free speech is because controversial opinions are allowed to be expressed. That's even if you don't agree with them, even if, you know, you say they're dangerous, when someone's opinion is not necessarily dangerous. In fact, a couple of years ago, many Democrats were questioning the efficiency and the security of voting systems. Were called into question by many Democrats.
Researchers have repeatedly demonstrated that ballot recording machines and other voting systems are susceptible to tampering.
Even hackers with limited prior knowledge, tools, and resources are able to breach voting machines in a matter of minutes.
In 2018, electronic voting machines in Georgia and Texas deleted votes for certain candidates or switched votes from one candidate to another.
The biggest seller of voting machines is doing something that violates Cybersecurity 101, directing that you install remote access software, which would make a machine like that, you know, a magnet for fraudsters and hackers.
These voting machines can be hacked quite easily.
You could easily hack into them. It makes it seem like all these states are doing different things, but in fact, 3 companies are controlling this.
It is the individual voting machines that pose some of the greatest risks.
There are a lot of states that are dealing with antiquated machines, right, which are vulnerable to being hacked.
Workers were able to easily hack into an electronic voting machine. It was possible to switch votes.
43% of American voters use voting machines that researchers have found have serious security flaws, including backdoors.
We know how vulnerable now our systems were. I know the hackathon that took place last year, where virtually every machine was broken into fairly quickly.
I actually held a demonstration for my colleagues here at the Capitol, where we brought in folks who, before our eyes, hacked election machines.
those that are being used in many states.
Aging systems also frequently rely on unsupported software like Windows XP in 2000, which may not receive regular security patches and are thus more vulnerable to the latest methods of cyber attack.
In a close presidential election, they just need to hack one swing state, or maybe one or two, or maybe just a few counties in one swing state.
I'm very concerned that you could have a hack that finally went through.
So they weren't silenced and censored, and you know, the only reason why public opinion really just kind of allowed the news companies to censor the president is because a lot of people, especially the elite mainstream, that has you know, hypnotized and lulled many to sleep, whether or not, you know, you think the prior president was correct. That was a valid opinion, and you can agree or disagree, but to censor him and deplatform him off the internet, that was unprecedented. And now YouTube, after the current administration decided, they're, you know, openly said they're going to partner with these companies now and help stamp out misinformation. So now that means they somehow have the right to censor a senator who was very calm, Senator Rand Paul, in his speech yesterday. He was very balanced, and he stated his opinion, which is pretty much the opposite of what we are being fed nonstop. And, you know, how dare he put a spoke in the wheel and interrupt the authoritarian agenda, because they are so righteous that how would anyone question them? That is just preposterous, you know? Everybody knows that anyone who questions the status quo is a clown, and in fact, they just shouldn't even be heard.
But in order to make it work, there's some good old-fashioned coalition building and lots of other things that need to come together.
I think we should go with a good old-fashioned public health scare.
Yeah. A new disease. No one's immune. It's like the summer of the shark, except instead of a shark, it's an epidemic. And instead of summer, it's all the time.
We've got cell phones to get information from the public and get information out to them. We have satellite maps where we can see where people are and where they're moving. And then we need to pair those medical people with the military. We need to do simulations, germ games, not war games. So we can have tools, but those tools need to be put into an overall global health system.
Well, we work with influencers because we think that people trust their influencers more than they trust many other sources, including news sources, including governments, including ministries of health, and including their own families. So we're trying to tap into the people who have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, and trying to get them to spread the word.
I share the concern about how to maintain sustained interest, let alone a sense of urgency.
The internet and social media, and the fact that there are fewer gatekeepers and that fewer institutions can play a gatekeeping function.
One thought I have is, you know, to the point of, do we create a moment in time that we work toward?
Algorithms to sift through information on these kind of social media platforms.
Make sure that we have the right representatives on traditional media networks in order to portray our side of the story and make sure that there isn't misinformation.
In order to portray our side of the story.
Overwhelming amounts of dis and misinformation circulating over the internet. In some cases, limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic.
People are avoiding public spaces out of fear of infection and in compliance with public health recommendations. This has had a dramatic effect on the retail and service sectors.
In other words, I think states are going to want to be able to decide for themselves on, in some circumstances, some of the issues that are relevant. So one of the challenges will be ensuring that you're using an existing mechanism, and I think Sophia's right about the UN as being sort of the base of operations in a sense, both for the funding but also for a whole series of other issues that you would be looking at for allocation, coordination, et cetera.
Governments will need to partner with traditional and social media in order to research and develop nimble approaches to countering misinformation. For their part, media companies, we believe, should commit to ensuring that authoritative messages are prioritized and really false messages are suppressed. Commit to ensuring that authoritative messages are prioritized, really false messages are suppressed.
Talking about misinformation and disinformation almost as an info virus, infecting and spreading among a community.
Certainly, those of us in the public health community use the media to get out the messages, of the public health messages. So they were really important on sort of, as you said, sort of putting a cone around the misinformation.
And third, by helping people become more news literate. We've seen that it seems to act almost as an inoculation, helping people resist misinformation better.
Yeah.
Now, as health officials scramble to prevent the spread, they're warning about what they call an infodemic, confusing information spreading faster than the virus itself.
From epidemic to infodemic.
That's right, Ken. You know, this is a huge task that the World Health Organization is taking on to basically cleanse the internet.
Infodemic, dangerous outbreak that some are calling an infodemic.
He said Silicon Valley has been very receptive.
We can't do it alone. We do need them. We have the credible content and they have the reach. And together we can actually fight this infodemic.
While navigating what the World Health Organization refers to as an infodemic, in the midst of the global spread of the novel coronavirus, we must all turn to facts first.
And put in place processes to allow us to take this information down very quickly.
Ever.
The kind of global government
that may include losing their jobs, losing their income, and even losing their health insurance.
This is an extraordinary time where we have to accept a new normal.
The new normal. This is our new normal, I guess.
Coming to terms with their new normal.
Certainly a new normal.
And I think what you're going to see is a new normal.
Adapt to this new normal.
As we wake up to a new normal today and life is slowly grinding to a halt.
Getting used to the new normal.
Getting ready for the next new normal.
Now we can see a new world coming into view.
Defining moment in history.
Novus Order Seclorum, a new order for the centuries, for the ages, forever.
The kind of global governance that is necessary
is to actually create a new world order, because the global order is changing again.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Anyone who questions the status quo is a clown, and in fact, they just shouldn't even be heard. They should be pre-censored, even. According to Henry Marcuse, who a few decades ago planted the seed of this repressive tolerance where you can censor ideas of the right, but you don't censor ideas from the left, even if they are violent, because they are working towards a good cause, according to leftists and Marxists in this case. So this is perfectly okay, and this was the plan seeded all along. Is it's okay to silence, people who speak out against the revolution. So I guess that's it for now. We can't pretend like these are just private companies anymore. They are partnered with the government, and they are, it's partisan censorship, and it's fascism, because it's the collusion of the government with private companies to forcefully suppress opposition, and that's not cool. Where are all the anti-fascists at? Oh yeah, they were conditional anti-fascists. They only were anti-fascists against so-called capitalism and Orange Man bad, but if fascism is okay, just like censorship and intolerance is okay if we're intolerating the right, according to them. And they have dominant power in the media and the universities, entertainment, and currently throughout the three branches of government. They basically have an entire monopoly, but they're not wasting any time. They're openly colluding now, and that's fascistic, and the censorship is akin to communism. So thank you for listening. please have a nice day. Don't let this get you down, but we need to communicate about these things so we can hopefully stand against it and prevent this shenanigans from encroaching further, because it is not who we are in this beautiful nation where we respect individual rights as well as collective rights, but individual rights are very important, and there is a movement to just kind of poo-poo those because we can't have nice things. The Democrats who have caused many of these problems through bad policy are now going to fix them for you. So let's give them more power and money. No, let's not. Let's vote these folks out and let our voices be heard peacefully and patriotically.